That looks really good.
I'm Justin Labato, lead detailing and education consultant for Buff & Shine.
And I am Sydni Brae Gwinn.
And I'm Tony Mazel, West Coast Sales.
And of course, Buff & Shine is a buffing pad manufacturer out of Southern California that was developed in 1987 through a gentleman called Rich Umbrell. And it's something that basically he saw a hole in the market for buffing pads.
This is our third year here at TRCMA, right?
Yep.
And so what have we been up to for the last 2 years?
One of the biggest things is our Edgeguard pads.
Right.
You know, we released these a couple years back here at TRCMA, and this is going to be our most innovative pad to date. Obviously, we've got a ton of pads to choose from. However, the Edgeguard is going to be our most up-to-date, most current one that you could look at and see the benefits. And of course, Sydni.
Yeah. I want to give our different perspectives. For me, it's been really impactful in keeping me more consistent with the self-centering ring. My pads, like I say, last a lot longer. The pad stays cooler. My corrections are better.
The return on investment for a pad like this is not just the pad, but it's also the purpose, being edge guard, obviously.
Yeah.
That's something that the edge of the pad, when you're hitting certain areas that normally your backing plate would leave little skip marks, balancing is everything, especially on the long throw machines. I mean, you cannot put a pad on a machine without it being balanced, or you feel the difference in regards to how that machine moves. The thing I like most about the ring is that we've gone through quite a few different renderings of finding plastic material that would be a good fit for durability and longevity. So it's one of those things that it's going to last, and it's going to last a very long time, and it's completely eliminated the whole delaminating issue when you are pulling your pads off and being super aggressive, so that way the foam doesn't actually separate from the backing itself.
Yeah. These have been just absolutely great, but recently, late last year and heading into SEMA, Rich spent a lot of time working on revamping like the whole wool pad line. So there's lots of new advancements in the wool pads and then in packaging. Love that Rich has done that with the packaging, is to make it more user-friendly, where when you're wondering what the pad does, what it was manufactured for, it's printed right there on the bag, which just takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. One of our wins for today was we wanted to answer the age-old question, how do I know what pads to pair with my products? We're going to try to simplify it into different categories of what pads would work best with certain liquids. I'll go through the categories and then we'll talk about kind of the pads. So we have heavy cut compounds, right? So this is going to be major defect removal. This is going to really do a lot as far as removing scratches, but you do want to understand what you're using and what pads to go with it to get the best out of that product. Then we have what we call one-step correction, meaning it's a product that's been made where you can hopefully cut and finish with the same product, one pad, one polish, that's going to give you what we call a one-step. Then we have an all-in-one. This is going to be a product that's going to have a little bit lighter cut, but it's going to finish and it's going to leave behind a little bit of protection. So you kind of want to really understand the difference between a one-step and an all-in-one. And then finally, we have the final polish. So why don't we go through, Justin and Tony, let's start with heavy cut correction. So how would one choose which
Keep in mind with these liquids, there's so many variables to the liquid abrasives that are on the market from so many different great manufacturers. Diminishing abrasives are going to be huge in regards to how heavy they cut, but also how well they finish out, versus some abrasive technologies does not finish out. So a diminishing abrasive, you want to look into that, research it, educate yourself on what that means, so when you do pair it with some of our pads, you're able to achieve getting that cut and finish all into that one-step type of approach. And that's where a lot of detailers are moving into. But the heavier stuff, a lot of times you're going after major defect removal. And that's going to be also where you find yourself working with some of the fiber-based pads, such as a wool pad of your choice. Depending upon how heavy or aggressive you need, the heaviness or aggressiveness of that pad, and of course microfiber. And keep in mind, there's also the paint system, how hard or soft the clear coat is.
And since we're talking about it too, like, it's important to educate yourself on the differences in cycle times for all these products, right? Some products are 30 to 45 seconds. Any more than that, it's lost its effectiveness because of that diminishing nature. And some products, most of the time when they don't diminish, you can work those things forever. You can keep do 3, 4, 5, 6 passes if you have to.
Yes.
So educating yourself on the difference of that only helps the rest of the process.
Right.
And that's why you never fall short and never second guess a test spot.
Right.
Your test spot is going to be your go-to in regards to everything and anything that's on the vehicle's finish. Obviously that may change if there was something repainted or whatever. There's, you know, some type of quilt on the vehicle to say where every door's and every panel's a little different. But the point to that is this is the experience you gain as you go and the learning curves you get when you're working with different liquids and different pads, of course, to accommodate what you're trying to achieve. But in regards to, you know, heavy defect removal, that's where you would get again into the fiber base, which would be your wool setup options, or of course your microfiber options as well.
So one thing to keep in mind when you're choosing a heavier cut compound is you're kind of committing yourself to most likely doing 2 steps, right? So you know you're going to go back with a finishing polish. And when we talk about correction level, if you're thinking of doing like a 1-step, you know, what I generally tell my customers is you're going to get about a 60 to 70% defect removal. But if somebody wants to go further, they want it, you know, 80 to 90%, then I may choose a heavier cut compound as my first step and a more aggressive pad, right? So what do we have here that we've chosen?
This would be our wool, purple wool that we offer that's an aggressive cut.
Okay.
And I want to pair this with the H9 from Kosh Chemie. Now this is something, again, getting into that approach, you know, managing expectations to your customers. Don't oversell and underdeliver. You know, don't tell them, oh, it's going to be 100% because you want to be a detail hero. So within the means of your arsenal, your tools, your compounds, polishes, pads, there's only so much you're going to be able to do before you have to get into sanding and all these other options. But again, keeping it simple. And moving forward to Sydney's point, when you're getting into defect removal, there's going to be what we call a DA haze or a compound haze that's left behind, because essentially you're effectively and safely leveling the clear coat with the abrasive of these fibers and the liquid abrasive that also plays as a lubricant as everything's moving in motion to safely and effectively level the clear coat. And we're talking microns. We're not talking anything major like mils or anything when you're sanding. However, this is also going to leave a haze behind, and that's what you look for as you read that scratch pattern. I call it being a paint whisperer. Because you literally are understanding and reading the scratch pattern, just like as time goes on and you're consulting with a customer when they bring a dirty vehicle in, you're able to see through that dirt. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple pea-sized dots here to this pad. What machine are we working with here?
This is an RBL 3-inch.
This is very quiet.
It is very quiet.
For camera use.
Yeah, we chose it because of its sound.
So this section here, now this is a test panel. This is something that's pre-painted. Not familiar with the paint system or anything that has to go along with what we're working with. We're kind of just roughly going into this today, freestyling it.
It's hard to pick up on camera, but we do have some pretty good scratches here.
And I personally took a brush across this to make sure that we have some defects so we could do some removal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kiss the paint a little bit, get this to move around. There we go. I'm just gonna work this small section. Nothing crazy, not too much pressure, keeping the machine flat. And I'm gonna go on a cross-hatch pattern. Now the good thing is I've worked with this H9 from Kosh Chemie and it's got some good work time to it. And of course, being familiar with the Buff and Shine purple wool, I know what I can expect in regards to both our cut for defect removal and our finish. And the one thing I like is when I'm able to hand this to an employee, the type of finish it leaves behind allows me to be able to come back and use our yellow foam or a blueberry blue foam with a great finishing polish and have an amazing overall result of that 70 to 90%. Of course, depending upon what I started with.
So now this is kind of what we're looking for, right? So we see that some of those deeper defects have been removed, but we also have a little bit of hazing, and this is good, right? This is what we want.
Yeah, this is the before. All scratched up with a brush, which you wouldn't do to your paint normally, but let's just say, you know, you had the kids behind the auto parts store. You're supporting the local school with the washes and the charity washes, and that's what you end up with the beach towels.
Yeah, but see, we've got a little bit of blue haloing, which is exactly what's going to happen when you use a wool pad and a compound. But that's good because it means we got deeper scratch removal, right?
Correct.
And so in some cases that may be what we're looking for. So then if we jump from here to the next section, if we jump from here and customer wants a 1-step, which is a lot of times what we do in our shops, prepping for a coating, you're doing a one-step correction, meaning you're trying to get as much correction and as good a finish out of one product, right? Because we want, as a detailer, we only want to go over that area one time. You're going to choose which pad is going to get the best cut and finish out of your one-step polish. So in this case, we'll choose something like Rehab, which was a correction cream made to do this, right? So this is going to be a correction cream that is adaptable to our pad. So yeah, and so this is going to, you'll learn this as you go, but this is going to be where you know your paint system. So like for instance, a Mercedes is going to take a maroon pad better than say like a Subaru, right? So soft paint, you may have to back up your pad a little bit. And I've had to do one-step corrections with the black pad, which is a very fine finishing pad. And so this is where you may have your favorite one-step correction cream, but you're going to adapt your pad to get your best cut and finish, right? Cool. So let's do a one step with this. So lots of great one step options here. We've got the Last Cut compound. This was kind of the, the original for me. This was kind of the original product that I used as a one step. It was very adaptable to different pads.
You want to have a few options in your cabinet because you never really know what that combo is going to be for that day on that car. And what I also tell people, which was, again, easier to do when I wasn't wearing the salesman shirt, is I tell them always try and buy two of a pad.
Oh, for sure.
At least two.
For sure.
And why is so you can pad cycle.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but what you don't want to happen is find that Rehab plus your blueberry pad is the perfect combo on that car for that day, and end up running into a situation where you have one. You have one in your cabinet, and now you're trying to do a whole car with one pad.
Right, exactly.
And you're not going to have a good time. And what we mean by pad cycling is quite literally changing out the pads while you're working, right?
So I left this strip right here.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that way you could see this is where we were. That was the DA haze.
Which then got out nearly like not 100, but 90% of the defects.
And then I came over here, and I still have a very light amount of DA haze. And again, this is going to be based on the paint. So this is going to tell me that I either have to adjust on my liquid or my pad. But again, running through as test spots, and us here demoing today being the first time we're really working on this panel, this starts to allow us to read and understand what adjustments we need to make as we go.
Sure. And you can go down or up, right? Around either aggressiveness of the pad or the product in this case. But so pad cycling is quite simply just changing out your pad while you're working, cleaning it. Something I like to use is the Rag Company air guns to clean the pads while I'm working. So I'll do this, after every section or every other section. And then every 3 to 4 or maybe a panel, just pull that pad off, let it cool down. Heat is the enemy. Switch to another pad and a nice clean pad, do your priming process again, and keep working, but just keep those pads cycling. Don't try and use one pad for half a car even.
For sure. So then the next section is an all-in-one. So this again is going to cut, finish, and leave behind a little bit of protection. So we've got one here. We're going to do this corner, and then I think we'll polish over these two to show the difference in the polish. So the one step, this is P602 from KCX, and so we are going to show you how if you just have the detail that just wants a one-step polish with a little bit of protection behind, this is the way to go. So we'll see what this one looks like.
Now, keep in mind, there is this category.
I was going to say,
ocean of options. And this is not to be confused with a one-step. A lot of times, the lingo, the language can tend to be a little confusing. This is truly something that is going to give you a slight amount of correction. Some are a little better, some are a little less than others, depending upon the manufacturer, and then some protection. Some have different types of waxes, some have different types of polymers, some are ceramic infused. So do your research, figure out, what that looks like for you on that scale of those 3 categories to give you that working harmony of what you're trying to achieve.
Right, which we should mention that because it does have a little bit of wax in it, that is actually a filler. So sometimes when using these products, it could look like you are literally a paint correction genius, right? When you're done. However, that is going to be a temporary result.
At that. I got all that out of one step.
It's not. Yes, and I learned on all-in-ones for sure.
I'm just going to go ahead and start fresh with a yellow pad today, and we'll see what that result gives us here.
And just to go into, while you're getting that ready, the difference in the pads a little bit. So the blue, why that works so well with a product like this is rather than using a really soft foam, we're actually using the cut level of that pad to get a little bit extra cut.
When we've talked about cycle time, a lot of these products that are all-in-ones are really try and focus on really quick, short passes.
Yeah.
You're almost spreading the product on the vehicle more than you are trying to correct paint with it. Because obviously, A, that's not the main goal of the product.
Right.
But B, you almost beat up the protection by cycling it too much. So you want to be quick and easy with it.
Just like that, yeah.
There you go.
Not a whole lot of time invested. And I would be surprised to see what this yellow pad has done with their P6.
Yeah, especially with the deep scratches that actually doesn't look too bad.
No, no, not at all.
Ones are real there.
So going from here to here, to give you an example.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you're a perfectionist and you're looking for defect removal, but some people, when this is brought in the sun, they just want, again, they want the gloss, they want the shine, they want it to be protected.
Yeah.
Well, they want the value ratio there for their daily driver that gets beat up to be, I just want it to look better, have some protection, and this is a service you can offer that's inexpensive and quick.
Yep.
Now, obviously, with the light on it, just going to highlight. Now, keep in mind, too, when you have these high-intensity LED lights, they're going to show you a heck of a lot more than what you're going to be able to see in the sun. What people always say is, oh, bring in the sun, bring in the sun. What they don't understand is that the sun will flood the surface. Because it has so many different angles from the atmosphere that it's actually hiding a lot of things versus, you know, high-intensity lights when you have a light tunnel or hex lights or the handheld scan grips that really show you truly what's going on with the defects in the paint.
All right, so last section then we have the fine polish. So we've got, you know, we've obviously done the most correction in this panel here. So let's go ahead and take your favorite finishing pad, which we've got a couple different options, right? We have the blue, or the, I'm sorry, not the blue, the black and the white. And then we'll take a final polish.
You want this guy?
And sure, yeah. So we're just going to polish this section. So obviously we had kind of the blue hazing from the wool pad. So now we're gonna go back over it with a fine polish. Now sometimes you could get away with doing a one step with a fine polish, but it's really not gonna do much for the defect removal at all. So this is gonna be what you go back over. This is getting out that hazing from the wool. So again, this isn't gonna be like a super, you know, this is gonna be really easy, nice, you know, kind of buzzing back over the paint just to remove the hazing. So I'm usually about just 3 passes and I do the cross hatching just to make sure I kind of get that all smoothed out. So then we're just gonna wipe that off.
It has a nice high finish to it.
Looks pretty good from here.
Yeah. And that's the other plus side about, you know, having a nice final polish.
So then we see that,
enhancement.
you know, that the hazing that was from the wool is now gone and we have a nice finish.
You do have some micro scratching, but again, a lot of that has to do with this panel.
The section they're looking at now.
We didn't take the time to run through and do test spots to make it picture perfect for video. This was something that we're doing on the fly because we want to showcase off, of course, the pads.
That looks really good, right? Like as far as gloss and all of that. Super cool.
You know what else is cool, Sydney? Subscribing to The Rag Company, as well as hitting that big old thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos here at The Rag Company, we have a playlist for all these TRCMA videos. So if you want to see the segments, you can check them out on the TRCMA playlist. Have fun.